Have you ever felt like your bank account is mysteriously lower than it should be and you're not sure where all that money went? Well, this episode is going to be the cure for just that feeling. Welcome, new and returning Money Buddies. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming, and this episode is going to be perfect for helping you get in control of that one piece of our lives that can feel so often out of control. It feels like everyone just wants to take money out of our bank account, and it can often feel like we have no control over it, and that's all that is happening to us. So today, we're going to tackle just exactly how to take a deep breath, reset, and gain control of your money. Because by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly where your money's quietly leaking out and the one simple thing that you can do about it this very week. And you're going to be able to say no to spending on things that don't really bring you value and feel like you're finally in control of spending money. Because one of the key things that we're going to talk about today is a no spend challenge. And my wife and I, we just finished wrapping up one of our own. And that's what made me feel like this episode would be so great to talk about a no spend challenge, because we haven't done one in quite a while. So honestly, I forgot how powerful they can really be towards resetting your mind and getting control of your money. And I'm very excited to share that story today because this is especially relevant to me right now. And I have some other tips and tricks that are going to help you feel like you're actually finally in control of your finances. Because it can be hard to build a financial roadmap and a full plan when it feels like our spending and the basic habits of personal finance are constantly out of control. So let's hit the reset switch with today's episode, take a deep breath, and figure out how to get in control of your money. You know, it's true. A lot of us, including me and you and everyone else listening, feel stressed from time to time when it comes to money. This is something that we can call money anxiety. And I want to kick off today's episode talking about what it's like to be stressed about the economy and money and what money anxiety can really look like and how you can lessen it. So we'll start off today's episode with that big problem. With this first article titled Stressed About the Economy, it's going to talk about some psychology that you can use to lessen money anxiety. This first quote here says, money anxiety can manifest in both psychological and physical symptoms, such as persistent worry about finances, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating. Maybe you're more irritated or you have mood swings, headaches, stomach issues, fatigue. All of those things can come from money anxiety, including avoidance behaviors like ignoring bills or compulsive behaviors like overspending. Money anxiety is a very real issue, and acknowledge it if it's something you're dealing with. I recently, for the very first time, tried to fully switch to a financial app instead of using my normal spreadsheet. And it was the first time I have ever been woken up during the night having a nightmare or a dream about money. And this was a very big realization for me to help me know that I needed to go back to what I was used to. So use those sensors and those alerts that your body's giving you saying you're stressed about money to adjust. Use your mind as a way to tell you that things are going right or things are not going right. Because if your mind's telling you something, then it may be a time to take a break, pause, and see what you need to do. A lot of this episode is going to talk about what you can do to hit that reset button and what you can do to get your footing back underneath you so you feel stable and okay with money. A couple more things here from this article to help you with some specific areas when it comes to being stressed about the economy or money. This next quote says that setting short-term goals and achievable financial goals can build confidence and create momentum. This can be a great way to build really powerful momentum. I love the idea of building confidence by hitting some quick, short-term goals that could be pretty easy and achievable. Because if you feel like retirement's running away from you or buying that big home is running away and you're not going to be able to do it, you could consider just doing something over the next 3 months, like paying extra towards a loan that you're trying to get rid of, or paying extra on credit card debt. That can be a really big way to say, yes, I can finally do something that is helping my financial situation. While it might not be that really, really big goal that you want to hit, and while it can feel like those goals are running away from us, doing some quick short-term goals can be a way to swing the momentum in our favor in a huge way. And the next quote says that reframing your perspective is another powerful method that can provide cognitive shifts. You can focus on self-compassion or remind yourself that financial hardship doesn't define you. And this can be another powerful way to help you understand that not everything you do is defined by your financial situation. And even though things might be really difficult right now, you might just need to accept it, but not let it get you down in other areas of your life. Maybe instead of viewing your higher grocery budget as a financial failure, you need to reframe it and understand that there's other factors at play that may be causing your grocery budget to increase to beyond what you were expecting. And then now that you've reframed it, you could potentially look at some smaller areas or some quick wins to get your grocery budget back in control to where you want it to be. Perhaps it feels like your entire grocery budget is up across the board, but when you really reframe it and look at it closely, there's just one meal that's the culprit, and that's all you need to cut back and adjust. But of course, at the same time as we're feeling stress in all these areas in our own personal financial situation, and then we go on top of it and add news and the economy and politics and all that sort of stuff. So this next quote addresses that. It says, staying informed about the economy without being overwhelmed by negative news can be tricky. The trick, though, is to set specific times to check the news and avoid doom scrolling. To me, this is huge. Setting a specific time or a specific way that you check the news or check up on the economy can be perfect to help you ease that stress when you're already dealing with so much other stress. If your social media app of choice is littered with news from financial media, you're always going to be stressed and upset and worried because that's what these financial media companies are made to do. It's how they make money. But if you limit yourself to actual helpful resources and the ones that aren't just trying to spread doom and gloom, it can be a great way to realize that things are fine and things are going to be okay. It can be a great way to get yourself out of that pessimistic mindset that buries us so quickly when we start worrying about our own money or the economy as a whole. And then if you set it up so that you're only checking once or twice a week, even better, because that's all that's really necessary. I stay up to date on the financial news because it's my profession, but it doesn't have to be something that I'm constantly listening to or constantly reading about or constantly even thinking about. It's something that I check periodically to make sure I'm up to date with bigger trends and larger things happening in the financial landscape, because if I tried to keep up with every little thing going on, I would be so stressed. So please relieve yourself from the stress and don't keep up with the news 24/7. But one of the biggest tools that I love to utilize for resetting our mind when it comes to spending is a no spend challenge. So that's exactly what I want to talk about today. And while there is a lot more to this episode than just a no spend challenge, it is the bulk of what we're going to talk about here next, because I think it's such a phenomenal tool to get back on top of your finances. So this next article is going to dive into what a no spend challenge is. It's titled, How a No Spend Challenge Can Save You Money. The first quote here says, sometimes it's hard to notice that your spending is getting out of hand. If you aren't conscious about your money habits, then there's a chance you're probably spending more money than necessary right now. And amen to that quote. It is so easy for spending to get out of hand and for it to just run away from us faster than we realize. It's very likely you're spending more money than you realize and more money than you need to be spending. And the trick to fixing this is a no spend challenge. So how do you do a no spend challenge? Well, from the article, they mentioned to 1, make a goal, 2, set up your timeline, 3, set your rules, 4, plan your timeline into your actual schedule, and 5, check in regularly. This is a great 5-step process on how to do this. I love the timeline to be 7 to 10 days. That's what works well for my wife and I. We recently did a 10-day no spend challenge after getting back from a trip because we felt like we needed to push ourselves a little bit to cut back on our spending. We usually only do one that's about 7 days long, but these no spend challenges can work. It's not only about how much money you don't spend, but it's how your mind shifts when you're making a conscious effort to stop unnecessary spending. And to me, the mindset shift is bigger than anything else here. Our recent no spend challenge was 10 days, like I mentioned, and honestly, we didn't save that much money. There wasn't much we were going to spend money on anyways, but it wasn't about the money that we saved by not spending. It was about getting back under control and feeling like our categories weren't just draining us like crazy. It was about getting our mindset back to a point where we were feeling like we were the ones in control, instead of feeling like everything was at a full speed sprint away from us. So in total, we maybe saved ourselves less than $100 in those 10 days, but ultimately that didn't matter. We allowed ourselves to think about money a whole lot less. And the value of not stressing about money and not having to think about money, that is priceless. What would it mean to you if you didn't have to stress or think about money for 7 to 10 days because you were able to get a no spend challenge in place and stick to it? I'd love to hear your feedback on this. So on Spotify or YouTube, leave a comment or send me an email. Let me know what you'd think about not having to stress about money. But now I want to talk about one area where you can likely very easily cut back, which is subscriptions. This is an area where so many of us feel so overwhelmed and like we're spending too much money. Cutting these subscriptions out of our lives can be a great way to very quickly get back in control of our financial situation. So these next few articles are going to help us talk about the reality behind subscriptions, and we're going to plug in some mentions of those darn delivery services and how they can also be damaging on our finances. And if you're lucky and don't have a whole bunch of financial subscriptions or don't succumb to delivery apps, great job. But these next couple of points are still going to be fantastic to apply to all sorts of different areas of our finances. So be sure to stay tuned because we have a great case study coming up right after these points about subscriptions and delivery services. This next article is titled, "Most People Believe They're Overpaying for Subscriptions," and it's a survey. So I have some surprising stats to share here with you. The first one is that 42% of Gen Z and millennials are subscribed to 6 to 10 services. 44% of millennials and 36% of Gen Z are spending more on subscriptions than last year, and the majority of Americans think they're spending too much on subscriptions, and a sizable chunk, 40%, think they have way too many subscriptions. Younger generations in particular feel oversubscribed and have trouble cutting back on their subscriptions. These are one of the biggest areas that damage all of our finances. They just sit there and slowly pluck money out of your wallet and take money out of the blue every single month. These can be one of the easiest ways to cut back and save you some very real money. My favorite trick is to cancel the subscription as soon as you sign up for it, because they're going to let you finish it out, and you're very likely going to find that you don't need it for more than 1 month at a time. And it's a heck of a lot easier to pay $15 for the service to use it for 1 month, because you're going to try to squeeze out every little bit of value during that month because you know it ends very soon. This recently happened for my wife and I with Apple TV. We watched a whole bunch of things during that 1 month that we had it, and it was great. And then at the end, we were comfortable with canceling it and not resubscribing to it every single month because we knew we already got a lot of value of it, and there wasn't a whole lot else to watch. How much more can you watch? So just subscribe to it for one time. But please make sure to actually cancel your subscriptions, because this next article is going to talk about the cost of unused subscriptions. This next quote says subscribers are wasting an average of $10.57 per month on unused paid subscriptions. Almost 2/3, about 65%, forget to cancel a free trial. And there's been times in my life as well. I'm this huge money nerd, and even I have forgotten to cancel a subscription and cancel a trial. And thankfully, it was one of those where I was able to mention that I forgot to cancel, and they just refunded me the money. So please don't be afraid to ask if you do accidentally forget to cancel. They may just go ahead and refund you. And it's okay if this happens to you, because the majority of us, including me and your fellow listeners and your fellow money buddies, around 65% of us have forgotten to cancel a free trial. So don't feel bad, but don't continue paying for the service you don't need. Because think about this question: what could you do with an average of $11 per month back in your bank account instead of going to a subscription that you're not even using? And if you really want to still give away that $11 per month, I'd be happy to take it. So please cancel your unused subscription so you can get that $11 per month back in your wallet. And the one last area that I want to talk about in this episode before our case study is food delivery. This last article here is titled, "I'm Treating This as a Real Addiction. Young Americans Caught in a Food Delivery Trap." This story from the article outlines a fellow young adult and fellow money buddy that said that she deleted the DoorDash app from her phone like it was someone cutting ties from a dangerous habit, because she was spending $9,000 a year ordering food at least once per day. She said, quote, "I deleted the DoorDash app the other day as a way to check in." And she said, "I'm not going to lie, I'm treating this as a real addiction, or at least something close to it, because it's addictive and impulsive to spend money in this way, and it's harming me and my finances in a serious way." And I'm super glad, as I was researching this episode, that there's a lot more coverage on how bad these food delivery apps have become in our lives. Not only are they separating us from ever actually talking to other humans, but the idea that you're spending $9,000 a year on food that's worth probably much less than that just because you're having it delivered is crazy to me. But a lot of people do it. So again, if you're someone who uses delivery services, don't feel bad. You may have fallen into this trap that they've laid out for us, but this is an area that you can save a ton of money. And here's the real funny thing is we used to say, don't eat out, eat at home to save money. But now you can still eat out, just don't have it delivered. You can still save a ton of money just by going to get the food instead of having it delivered. Like I said, we're at a point where it's better to eat out and spend more money on eating out just because you're not having it delivered and you're still saving money. So really, you could step yourself out of spending so much money on food by first cutting off delivery services. Then after a couple months, consider not even going out to eat and save yourself even more money. But the point that I really want to hit home here is that food delivery is going to be one of those line items in your budget that is going to feel like it's way more than it should be and feels like it's running away from you. And it can be an easy way to cut back and get a whole lot of money back in your wallet. But that does it for 3 ways that you can hit reset on your money, including a no spend challenge, cutting back on delivery apps, and checking in on your subscriptions. Next, I want to talk about a case study that's going to help paint the real world picture and how this plays out in our day-to-day lives. Let's start out here with setting up today's case study with Nate and Melissa. They're in their late 20s, they live in Henderson, Nevada, and they make about $110,000 combined. It feels like plenty, and about 2 years ago when they got married, it felt like it was plenty. But somewhere between their wedding, settling into their apartment, just living their life, things have started to shift. They've gotten a little more comfortable. They start saying yes to a few more things, some streaming services, a gym membership, meal kits because cooking felt exhausting after both of them working, door dashing quite often. And, well, they said that they worked hard and they deserved it, which we've all said at some point. And then Nate picked up a parking pass for a closer parking lot to his office. Melissa started getting her nails done monthly, which may not have been a bad deal on its own, and none of these things were particularly bad, but dozens of these small things added up over the last 12 months. And they don't feel like they're living extravagantly. They're just living, and somehow that's become expensive. They look at their bank account around the 20th of every month and they feel that familiar feeling of panic, like they can't get things in order. They talk about buying a home someday and that feels further away than ever. Retirement feels like something that other people only think about. Neither of them came from families that openly talked about money, so they're not sure what to do. Their parents just got by or were paying off credit card debt. And they both want to do better, but they don't have a clear picture of how to do that or how to reset their situation, and it's starting to create tension between them. They're in an uncomfortable place between feeling stuck, wanting to do something good with all the money they're making, and not being sure where to start. It's very likely that you've probably found yourself in a situation like this as well. This can be such a great place to hit reset, take a break, and try to get your spending back under control. So the first thing that they did was pull the last 2 months of bank and credit card statements, or you can connect your accounts to an app and look over the last 2 months or so and categorize every single transaction. This is going to help you understand what's really going on. You're going to get the cold hard facts about the situation. And for Nate and Melissa, they realized nothing was really that outrageous. It all made sense. It all had a place. But these little things were really adding up over the last several months. Here's a little bit about what they uncovered, and you may see something similar. They had a ton of different subscriptions and memberships like Netflix, Hulu, 2 separate Spotify accounts, a gym that hadn't been visited in months, and a subscription that neither of them knew about, Amazon Prime, iCloud storage on both of their accounts, and a meal kit service that they didn't really like anymore. This was about $350 a month. Then they went to look at their convenience spending, things like DoorDash or Uber Eats, and that ended up being another $300 a month. And then they noticed some of those quick stop, convenience store type purchases were adding up to another $200 per month. So in the grand scheme of their evaluation of their financial situation, they realized there was $850 a month that was just going out the door. That's about $10,000 per year. All of this while they're saying they can't afford to max out one IRA, or they don't know how to save for a home or how to save for retirement. The money's right there. It's just being pulled out of your account in $20 per month increments or a $5 purchase here and there. So these things can really add up when you look at all these different categories together. And now we've already talked about a no spend challenge, and you know how powerful that can be and how the mindset shift can really supercharge your situation. But again, subscriptions can be one of the sneakiest places that your money's quietly disappearing every single month. And I bet when you heard those numbers of how much money they're saving, that's going to make you want to look at your own bank statements and see where you can save money. But a great place for Nate and Melissa and all of those of you listening to start would be to make a short list of changes, because remember, it's a great way to build momentum and start heading in the right direction. Nate and Melissa, or none of us, need to cut every single thing out, but you do need to make some specific choices to get yourself going in the right direction. All of those different streaming services, well, you only have one set of ears and one set of eyeballs. So trim those down to just one at a time, and then you can change back and forth. Go cancel the gym membership, even if there's going to be a little bit of a fee, because you know that's how gyms like to make money. Pause that meal kit subscription and consider using that money to pay for groceries and meal plan a little bit ahead of time. But how can a no spend challenge actually be implemented? Well, after looking over their situation, something that Nate and Melissa could do would be to implement a no spend challenge maybe every single month for a little bit. One idea they could do is to have a no spend week every other week. It could become a fun game where you could see if you could go a whole week without spending money and see what you can do with all that extra time and that money that you're saving. You could gamify it even further by taking any expense that you don't make because of a no spend week and consider putting that directly into a savings account. You could call that your house fund, and that could get you going on one of those bigger goals. And while it may not be enough to actually add up to a full down payment, the momentum you can gain can be massive in getting you going in the right direction. So in this case study with Nate and Melissa, after 90 days, they had realized they redirected $600 per month towards savings. Their emergency fund grew for the first time. Their house fund had money in it for once. And more importantly, they stopped fighting about money because they finally had a shared system and a shared vision and a shared way to get on top of their finances. And the key thing that I want to stress here is that they stopped fighting about money because they finally had that shared system. That's what a no spend challenge can do. It can get you thinking about money in a positive light and get you some powerful momentum towards doing what you want to do with money. Whether you're married or single, taking a break from spending money, using that time to reflect and look back on how you have been spending money in the past and how you want to spend it going forward can be extremely helpful. So what do you think of a no spend challenge? I want you to leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify or send me an email. Let me know if you're going to try a no spend challenge, and I would love to follow up in 7 to 10 days to hear more about how they impacted your financial situation and how you watched your financial stress just melt away because you didn't have to worry about money so much. And that does it for today's episode. I have one action item that you can probably guess what it's going to be, but we're going to wrap up this whole episode here in just a minute. But the one action item for you to do from today's episode is to look at the calendar and decide when you can do a no spend challenge and do it. Make it a fun game for the whole family to get involved and see how much money you can save over 7 days. Use it as a time to reflect on how your financial plan is going right now and how you'd like to see it change and go forward in the future. I promise that this is going to be a great point to get a good reset on how you're spending money and just really get in control of your finances. And if today's episode resonated with you, there's a good chance that you have a friend or a coworker or someone in your life who's feeling the exact same way right now. And maybe they've mentioned being stressed about money or that they could use a reset or they wish their bills would stop coming in, right? Share this episode with them. Send it to them right now while you're thinking about it, because doing a no spend challenge is a whole lot more fun and a whole lot easier when you have someone to do it with. And you could share your wins together, hold each other accountable, and make it a game together. It's so much more fun when you can all save money together, and the more people you get involved in this game, saving money together, the easier the whole thing gets because you're all on the same page. But if you need help setting up a no spend challenge, let me know. This is something that I love to discuss with people and help talk through how practical and realistic it can actually be. So I'm offering each and every one of you a free 30-minute call for us to sit down and talk through how to do a no spend challenge and how it can be helpful for you. It's super easy to take action. Head to the show notes or the description and send me an email with the subject no spend challenge, and we'll go from there. But next week, we have the most asked about topic coming up on the show. Because if I had a penny for every single time someone told me they wanted to be able to afford a house but don't feel like they can, I would be able to afford a house. So that's the topic we're going to talk about next week. Buying versus renting and what you can do with the money on both sides of that equation. And how do you actually save for a home? So be sure to subscribe and check out the podcast next week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Financial Planning for Young Adults. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming. Have a great week. And hey, quick heads up. This podcast, it's meant to be educational and it's for entertainment purposes. It's not personalized financial advice for your specific situation. So before you go out and make any big money moves, make sure you chat with a qualified financial professional who knows your full financial picture.